anything on one player for the Rockets and you put the blame on, I think it might be Eric Gordon, who really just did not play all that well outside of a couple games in the series. He had 2 big games, and those were very close games that the Rockets had a chance to win. In one game 3, they had a chance to win game 1, if not for some calls. They very well do win that game. And then the other games, he was just invisible, Jason. I mean, in game 6, he was just put in a box. And I think when that happens, it's hard for this team to win. And it just shows you that the Rockets, they're a very good team, but the Warriors, I think, just kind of, I don't know, I think they just out-talented them in some ways in this game. They just put out their best 5, and the Rockets couldn't stand up to it. And, I'll give you that maybe Gordon, I don't know, I hate to use the choke word, but it did feel like the moment was a little too big for him in Game 6. And that was the guy they really needed, Jason, I felt like, in this series. I felt like he created so much for them. When he was aggressive, I just felt like they were a much better team when he was an aggressive player, and when he wasn't, I felt like it really impacted the rest of the team because they just don't have other guys who can put the ball in the hoop.
Well, I think as a collective unit, they choked. They had a golden opportunity, and they did not get the job done. And now without Kevin Durant, the Warriors playing the Portland Trail Blazers for the right to go to the NBA Finals. Now, we had another series that we have to spend some time on, and that was Nuggets Blazers. And I think pound for pound, I know that Sixers Raptors went 7 and Kawhi hit that shot. But what a series from the Nuggets and the Blazers. I mean, Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum really just willed that team to victory. And they win Game 7 in Denver on the road behind CJ McCollum, who just killed Denver in the mid-range game. And Portland playing for the Western Conference crown in the Curry Bowl, as we like to affectionately call it.
Yeah, we've got Clegane Bowl in Game of Thrones. We got the Curry Bowl here. I mean, that was pound for pound the best series. I completely agree with you. I don't think that there's much of an argument to be made. I mean, all the games were really close. They were incredibly even-matched teams. And C.J. McCollum just, I mean, you got to give the guy credit. He willed them, as you said, to 2 victories in this series. The classic overtime, 4 overtime, quadruple overtime classic was a CJ McCollum show for the end of that game. And then this Game 7 where McCollum just turned into this just absolute killer, Jason. I mean, he was unstoppable. I don't know if you were watching any of that game or you caught the highlights, but my goodness, I mean, he just was hitting everything. They couldn't stop him. He was taking these mid-range shots that normally you kind of live with, but he was just hitting everything, and the Nuggets just didn't know what to do with him. And for that reason, as you said, Nuggets end up going home, and the Trailblazers move on, and now this changes the destiny of a team who got swept by the Pelicans last year, and it felt like they were maybe done, and now, Jason, they're in the conference finals. Who knows what happens when Kevin Durant leaves? I mean, what do you make of them, and what do you think this means for their future?
Well, first of all, just on the losing side, I'm not going to be as hard on Denver as I am on Houston because Denver was not supposed to be here, Ben. Okay, Nikola Jokic played his heart out, and he's the real deal. Top 10 player in the NBA, I think could get even better and should be back even stronger. So I'm not going to be particularly hard on the Nuggets, but Portland, they got their due. I mean, I've said a few times on the show that maybe another early exit means they trade Lillard, trade McCollum, and just blow it all up and start fresh. And instead, they ran it back with Terry Stotts. They made some enhancements to their bench, namely Enes Kanter and Rodney Hood. And the Trailblazers deserve to be here. I mean, how cool has it been that Steph is finally playing in a playoff series against his younger brother, Seth? The first time in NBA history, according to the Elias Sports Bureau, that 2 brothers will play against each other in a conference finals or NBA finals. How cool is that? Aside from all the great play from the Trailblazers guards, I mean, this is a family affair for the Currys. I'm looking very much forward to this series.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's going to be a heck of a series, too. I mean, can we say this is probably the best 2 backcourts in the NBA, Jason, don't you think? I mean, McCollum, Lillard, Thompson, Curry. I mean, it's certainly the best shooting backcourts in the league. I think you've got to give them number 1. I mean, they're incredible, and that's going to make this series fun to watch because when you get those perimeter players getting the ball out there, having those threes, it spaces the floor for everyone. Unfortunately, Jason, I think for Portland, the problem is going to be that they just need to get a lot out of their wings in this series, and I don't know that they're going to be able to do that. And I think that
Yeah.
might be what makes the difference in this series, is that the Trailblazers are going to be depending an awful lot on Mo Harkless and Al Farouk Aminu to play really good basketball. And I just don't know if those two guys can do it. And if they don't, you saw this in the Denver series, Jason, it puts a lot of strain on McCollum and Lillard because those guys, they just don't have the space. There were a lot of times, and in Game 7, there was a play at the very beginning of the game that the announcers really called out, which was where Aminu got a pass from Lillard, and he chose to ball fake and put the ball down and drive in and ended up running straight into Millsap for a charge. And I thought Greg Anthony, I think it was, said, he's got to shoot that shot. Even if he misses, he's got to shoot it. And it's so true. On this team, if Harkless and Aminu aren't shooting the ball, it just vaporizes the space that Lillard and McCollum need out on the perimeter, because then teams just don't even worry about it. They're just going to double those guys every time. And without a shooting big man, Cantor's not a shooter. It lets them really crowd the shooters and then crowd the paint, and it makes it really hard for those guys. And the Warriors are a different defensive team than the Nuggets. They are not going to give them some of the easy looks that they got at the beginning of the series. So, to me, Jason, as much as I like the Trailblazers, I think the run ends here, and I think the Warriors end up taking it to them, especially if Durant comes back. I think the Warriors take it in 5.
Well, that's a bold prediction, sir, because we don't know how much time Kevin Durant's going to miss. I mean, when he went down in Game 5, a lot of people thought that was the Achilles. Thankfully, it's just a calf strain, but those things are tricky, man. If he misses at least the first couple games, I think Portland does make it a series, but ultimately it's Kevin Durant. He's a Warrior, no pun intended. I think he comes back, but I think the Bucks make this a series. I'm going Warriors in 6. So it looks like you and I have the same NBA Finals, Warriors, Bucks, but we just have it going down a little differently. I thought you were the big basketball fan out of this podcast duo, but you have these series ending pretty quickly. Bucks in 6, Warriors in 5. I have the Bucks in 7 and the Warriors in 6 because I like playoff basketball, Ben.
Well, I'm also going to tell you something. I have a little bit of a hot take here, Jason. I think it's time for our heat check of the week. I think not only do the Bucks take down the Raptors, but I think they have a chance to end the Warrior Durant dynasty with a sour taste in their mouths, because the Bucks showed me a lot in this Celtics series that they don't mess around. They're going to have the best player in the series perhaps in every game that they play. Giannis is just that good, and the rest of that team has just fit in around him beautifully. I think the combination of their defense and the greatness of Giannis gives them a chance to take down the Warriors, especially because the Warriors have not been quite as good defensively as I thought. They turned it up for Game 6, but I am curious to see. I think against the Trailblazers, they may not need to be at their very best to win that series, but if they don't put their foot straight onto the gas against this Bucks team, I think this series could be in dire need of their top-level effort before they know it, because not only are the Bucks a solid team, they're going to have home court advantage, Jason. They're going to start the first 2 games if they win in Milwaukee, and that means that the Warriors are going to really have to do some work. And I think if the Bucks come out and they play like they've played, I think there's a real chance for the Bucks to actually beat the Warriors in the NBA Finals. And I don't think anyone thought the Warriors were going to lose. I think the Bucks, with the way that they've played, are a real challenger for this Warriors team, and the best that they've faced in their Durant years.
Wow. Ben with the piping hot NBA Finals prediction already right off the bat. Hey, I'd love to see it, okay? Get Brook Lopez a championship ring. Get Giannis Antetokounmpo at 24 years old a championship ring. But I'm not going to let you get too ahead of yourselves because I love you too much and I don't want to see you embarrassed. But I would love to see that. So we'll see what happens in these conference finals. But for my heat check, I'm going to veer away from the playoffs here. And I am going to go with what the hell is wrong with the Los Angeles Lakers, okay? You and I sat here 1 week ago tonight and said, oh, it's all but done. Ty Lue's going to be the head coach of the Lakers. He had a Lakers-themed birthday party with cupcakes and Lolly the Laker. I mean, I don't even think the Lakers have a mascot. I might have just given them one. I will share all my royalties with you, Ben. But how come they were not able to get a deal done with Ty Lue? A championship head coach. He deserves every right to receive the contract that he desires, okay? John Beilein, which I think is a great culture hire in Cleveland, got a 5-year deal. Monty Williams, who was an assistant for many years, got a 5-year deal in Phoenix. You're telling me that Buss and Rambis were only able to offer Ty Lue 3 years? On what premise? That LeBron has 2 years left on his contract, and once he leaves, they're going to fire Ty Lue and bring in another coach in this revolving door of inconsistency and dysfunction? Nothing against Frank Vogel, okay? I want to get your take on this too. Frank Vogel is a solid head coach. I think he was on the shelf way too long. They're bringing in Jason Kidd as the lead assistant. I'm interested to see how Jay Kidd does in that role because he's used to having all the power. Can a guy like Frank Vogel get Jason Kidd to cooperate? I think if Lonzo Ball's there, Kidd's going to be good for Lonzo. But shame on the Lakers for not getting LeBron James the head coach that he wanted, because LeBron James does not have a no-trade clause. If things continue to go sour, and they perked up a little bit tonight, giving the Lakers the number 4 pick, but if LeBron's not happy, they can move him. His contract's not that polarizing. So if you're the Lakers, shame on you. Do not get your guy, LeBron James, his guy. And we're going to have to see how Frank Vogel does in Los Angeles, man. What do you think about that hire?
I mean, I think at the bottom line here is just that they're downgrading their coach. I think I'd rather have Luke Walton than either of those guys at the end of the day. Vogel is fine. He's a player's coach. I think he'll do all right. I do feel like there's a serious whiff of David Blatt to this, where I'm just not sure he's going to have the job at the end of the season, Jason. It feels like they're almost just putting him in there to fail so that Jason Kidd can take over the job. It's very weird, and I'm not sure that that's really gonna breed any goodwill on this team. And I think for the Lakers, that's the most curious part of this, is that ultimately, it's sort of like having 2 girlfriends in the same house. All of a sudden, those guys, they both kind of want the same thing. And I think that's going to cause some infighting with the rest of the team, because it's almost like you have to pick a favorite. Which one do you want to follow becomes kind of the story of the Lakers now. If Frank Vogel does a great job, Jason, is Jason Kidd just going to say, sure, I'll just stick as an assistant? I don't see it. I mean, Jason Kidd has wanted more control everywhere he's been. And I just don't see it that he's just going to say, sure, I'll be the assistant. So if things go poorly, I feel like Jason Kidd is going to reach for the reins, and suddenly Frank Vogel is going to find that he has to defend himself against his own assistant coach. And that's not great for the team. And then meanwhile, if they do well, does Jason Kidd react okay? Is he going to be okay with just being the second banana? The whole thing feels like a lot of drama, Jason, and it just feels like a continuation of something we talked about a few weeks ago, where the Lakers have sort of taken the mantle of the most dysfunctional franchise in the NBA. And it's remarkable for a team that has LeBron James that we're saying that.
I mean, I'm not surprised. When you surround LeBron with a bunch of guys that can't shoot, I said this on last week's show, you need to shoot in today's NBA. Now, I think the Lakers do have a chance to go out and get a difference maker with the number 4 pick, but with LeBron in win now mode and a slew of young picks already on this roster, I mean, they may have to flip that pick, even if it's not for Anthony Davis. They need to get a sharpshooter in there. You have to see if you could get a Kawhi Leonard or Jimmy Butler to want to come play with you. I don't think Durant's going to want to come play second fiddle to LeBron.